Well, hello, hello, hello. I'm Jane Hogan, the wellness engineer, and this is Wellness by Design. And today we are talking about poop, specifically constipation. This is like one of those topics that people, it's a bit embarrassing. People don't want to talk about it, but it is so important. As my guest today knows all about, it's Elissa Arnheim. Elissa, welcome to Wellness by Design today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jane. It's such an honor to be here, and I just love the work that you're sharing with the world. So thanks.
Oh, and I love what you're doing too, and especially because you're taking this topic and normalizing it so that people will talk about it because it's so important to our health. So I'm just going to tell people a little bit about you, Elissa. Elissa Arnheim is a certified holistic health coach, a certified fermentationist, and holds an MS in ecological planning. Now, Elissa helps people of all ages drastically reduce inflammation and restore their gut microbiome with new choices that feel so good they can't stop, won't stop choosing their own health and happiness. She does this by reviving the natural cravings that feed their most empowered, independent, and extraordinary, healthy, and happy life. Elissa has been coaching families and individuals since 2014. She has hosted multiple summits and has been showcased on numerous shows, summits, and podcasts, sharing simple, science backed options so you can live your very best life. Ah, isn't that sweet? And you're so excited about it too, which is so beautiful.
I am. I really am.
So I noticed you had this degree in ecological planning and now you kind of went to holistic health coaching. Like what was your story? How did this transition happen for you?
Well, I went to college and grad school wanting to, save the world. And so I thought that helping to save the natural terrain and ecology and communities, the natural landscape was really important in that process. And then, life happens with a certain number of years of field work and education and all this stuff, I decided I'm going to move to the city and not be wearing like hiking boots and rain pants every day and, get a retirement fund. And I think I've had enough of this. But my brain still works that way. And I was working in a hospital and just, witnessing how these people were coming back over and over and over again with the same problems. And then when we started a family and I had a baby, I went back for a year and it just was it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what we wanted. And so I left my job and I became health coach, which really in the end, like is kind of about ecology also. So it really
Yes.
suited how my brain worked. Um, but there I was thinking that we were all so healthy and I was helping people figure out how to raise their babies to be kids that loved eating vegetables because I thought that was the holy grail of health. And then we found out my little boy at 2.5 had cancer, a really terrifying, enormous tumor in his chest. Not a lot of kids had this type of cancer. And so they were kind of like, do you want to do this experimental protocol or do you want to do this other one that's also not really well established? It was terrifying. And so then and he's great. He's doing so well. And he got through that just so beautifully. And I'm so grateful to all of the practitioners that were involved in his care. And when I came back to my work, I had a completely new perspective. I had just started learning about the importance of our gut health and the microorganisms there and how they impact our not just our digestion, but our moods and our immune system and our detox. And so having a child going through cancer and then recovering from not just the cancer and the surgeries, but also the super toxic year of chemo, I was really focused on gut health. And so that became the focus of my coaching. And so then fast forward a few years, and I had been helping lots of families get rid of picky eating. And which is really stubborn. And it's a really hard thing to tackle. And a lot of kids were like doing great, and the families were so thrilled. But there were some families that were like, nothing's budging. And it turned out that usually those kids were super constipated. And so that was like if a kid was constipated, nothing else worked because they were full of food. There was no room for anything else. But our brains, like, we need to feel good. And so our brains are saying, eat that thing that's going to make you feel a little better, like give you an energy boost, give you a mood boost. And, you know, without being conscious of it, of course. I mean, not even adults are really conscious of this process unless they're really paying attention and interested. And so those kids, of course, are going to reach for the sugar, the white foods, gluten and dairy, because they give you a nice hit of comfort. That's why they're comfort foods. And so that began this for me. I was like, whoa, this is really interesting. What is going on? What is going on in our minds, in our bodies? And the more research I did on constipation, oh my gosh, I started uncovering these like really interesting connections that like, oh, people with ADHD are almost always constipated. Oh, people with Parkinson's disease always have, the studies I've read indicate always is preceded by 20 years of constipation.
Yeah, I've read that too.
And so then I was like, oh my gosh. And that's, I mean, there's like the metabolic dysfunction, diabetes, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Hormones.
I mean,
So many things.
not to mention that you're not, you know, toxins are building up because you're not eliminating them like they need to be eliminated.
Absolutely. You can't detox if your main detox route, your digestion and pooping, if you're not eliminating. And then when you have those toxins backing up, like think about your home. If your home is filling up with like garbage and non-helpful bugs, you know, it's going to really change your living environment. It's going to change how you think. It's going to change how you feel, what you're available to do. And so our guts just kind of become this poisonous, toxic environment that changes your hormones, that changes your metabolism, I mean, if you don't have the healthy, happy gut bugs that are making B vitamins and happy neurotransmitters, if you're getting crowded out by all the stuff that likes to hang out in garbage, like those microbes, they're not doing anything good for you.
Yeah, kind of a bad neighborhood.
It's a bad neighborhood. You know, I like to describe it to the families I work with. We have this beautiful graphic where it's like you pretend you're having a party. Do you want to, you know, like you're having a potluck and like all your favorite guests, they come over and they're bringing like beautiful platters of yummy foods. And they're the ones that'll like be at the end of the night, they'll be in the kitchen with you doing the dishes together. I have such good memories of parties when I was young and being in there with everyone cleaning the dishes. And they're like, you know, they're helpful, or you could end up with party goers that show up at your party. They don't bring any food. They eat everything you have. They leave garbage in your house and they're messy and they're loud and they get in fights. You don't want those there. And that's the difference. That's the difference, you know?
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm so glad that your son is okay now. So thank you for letting us know that. But, you know, it's interesting, these journeys that we have, how they show us the way and the path to what our calling is. And for you, it was this gut terrain, which I don't know how many people are aware of this, that how chemotherapy can really disrupt the gut. And so if anyone's going through chemotherapy, then getting your gut in healthy again is so important. All right. So constipation is what you help people with. Where do you even begin? How does it start?
So when people know that they're constipated, it's usually because it's really, really uncomfortable. And so the first thing I want to do is help people find relief so that they can just, you know, calm down, not be in pain, be able to sleep, be able to think clearly. And so I love starting with a three-prong approach, which is a combination of adding magnesium bisglycinate in the evenings.
Yeah.
When we wake up in the morning, this is something that I do every day just because it's really supportive. So is my son. So magnesium bisglycinate in the evening. First thing in the morning when we wake up, I drink 2 big glasses of water and my 10-year-old drinks 2 big cups of water, less than me. And it's salted with like a little bit of Himalayan pink salt or gray Celtic sea salt for the extra minerals. And then the third part is we have a little pooping stool, a squatting stool in front of the toilet, so that when we're sitting on the toilet, our knees and hips are bent.
Yeah.
And so I'll back up and explain. Can I explain a little more about why these three things are all really important?
Yes, absolutely. People need to hear this.
Okay, so this squatting thing might be like horrifying, like, hello, we don't live in the woods, right? But actually, our bodies were designed to live outside and squat to eliminate. And there's actually this brilliant, our bodies are so brilliant. I just want to throw that out there. Our bodies are
They
so
are.
brilliant. They're always engaged in healing. We just have to like get a few things out of the way. It's so amazing to actually start experimenting with like, okay, what one thing can I change and see what happens? And then what if I add this other thing? And that's kind of like my science brain, like,
I
experimenting
get it.
for so good. You're like that too.
Yep, science brain.
Totally. So when you add this little stool in front of the toilet, then you're folding up your hips and your knees. And when you fold your hips like that, you release a muscle called the puborectalis muscle. And that is basically, it's like a safety latch that kinks your rectum, like kinking a hose, bending it so nothing can get through, just inside your bum, so that when you're walking around and you're doing your errands and you're, driving in the car, like you're not worried you're going to poop, because it just magically doesn't happen, right?
Thank
Unless you're
goodness for
really
that
sick.
muscle.
And it's the puborectalis muscle, right? But we need to open the door. We need to open our rectum completely by releasing this little trapdoor latch. And the way it releases is by bending our hips,
Yeah.
as if we were squatting. So that is just such a great solution. It's so easy for everybody.
Yeah.
And then we back up again, that water. So in traditional Chinese medicine, 5 to 7 a.m. is colon time. It's when our colons are active and responsive. And even if you don't get up in those 2 hours, first thing in the morning, your body it's been rested. You haven't had anything to eat for many hours, depending on, when you last ate. And when you drink this water, you trigger a bowel movement. You trigger that urge. You're flushing your whole body with cleansing water. And if you add a little bit of those natural salts, you're adding extra minerals that are really helpful to have that water be absorbed into your cells, which are a little salty also and need those minerals. So then you're adding that extra impetus. So then you've got the water and then the stool. And if we back it up even more to the night before, when you have this magnesium bisglycinate, which I love, I love the magnesium bisglycinate that is just like super simple. It just has a little monk fruit mixed in it. It's a powder. You mix it in your water. When you take this form of magnesium, so magnesium is one of the minerals that almost everybody is deficient in if we don't take extra. It used to be in our waters that were like, we would get water from streams and brooks and rock basins, and they would absorb minerals from all that motion moving through the rocks, coming up through the springs. And we don't get water that way anymore. And we filter our water and purify our water. And so anyway, that magnesium, it goes into our digestive system, and it stays in, depending on the type, it stays in our colon and draws moisture into everything that's inside that tube of our digestive system. So the more water there is, the more bulky it is, the more fluid it is, and the much easier it is to pass.
Right.
Magnesium bisglycinate is actually a form that is the most absorbable into our bodies, and magnesium calms us. Magnesium calms excitatory neurotransmitters. So if you've got a kiddo who like, if something happens, like their chair's in the wrong place, a green vegetable touches their plate, they don't have the thing they need, like their stuffed animal when they get in the car, and then they're like, they're going to be crying and hysterical for an hour, and it's like there's nothing you can do to help them. it might be that they have no minerals left to calm those excitatory neurotransmitters that get excited when something surprising or disappointing happens.
Mm,
So we all need that kind of calm. So
right.
I love the magnesium bisglycinate. Take enough so that your body gets everything it needs. And then all of the extra stays in your bowels, draws the moisture in. And in the morning, you will have, depending on how much you take, and as you find your set point, you will have the urge to go. So those three things combined, really, really helpful. There are other things, of course, but they may be longer term approaches, like, oh, let's think about hormones. Oh, let's think about, like, are there some stuck traumas or anxieties? Can we do a little bit of gentle brain balancing to calm our system and release our bodies? Because of course our thoughts, our brains, our energies all connected to like what's happening physically in our bodies.
Yeah.
And that the being stressed, it changes the biochemistry in our digestion. Cortisol actually, it goes through our digestion to be recycled. And it causes inflammation, it decreases our body temperature. And so this is the terrain, this is the ecology part of it, where, like if you have, a mountainside with trees growing on it, and then you lower the temperature, well, you might have some different plants that like that. You might have some
Right.
different animals that like that. It's the same in our gut.
Mm-hmm.
You think about like acid rain comes along, a lot of things die, things adapt. But, if we've got this like shower of cortisol going into our gut, that's going to change what lives there and how we can eliminate.
Sure.
I've been
Elissa,
talking a
I want
lot.
to ask you about the magnesium because magnesium does come in a lot of different forms.
Mhm.
So, that there's one that's very well known called Calm, but
Yes.
that's not the same type of magnesium you're talking about, is it? Is it different
It's
form?
not. And you know what? Thank you for reminding me of that, because that, if I were to say, like, if you were to ask me what is something that anyone can do like right now, if you go to your grocery store, you can find that calm. It's in most grocery stores, just
Yeah.
capital CALM, and it is magnesium citrate.
Yeah.
So magnesium citrate is really great. And it's a great place to start because almost all of it goes into your digestion. And so
Right.
all it's doing is bringing that water in and softening stool.
Okay. So if someone
Thank you for
couldn't get
asking that.
Yeah, so if someone couldn't get the other form of magnesium that you mentioned, they Calm is available everywhere, so that would be a good place to start. But would you recommend that they should eventually go to the magnesium
Bisglycinate.
disglycinate? Yeah.
I do really, I think it's important for people to try it out because it is so effective at calming our whole system and bringing back our magnesium stores very quickly.
Mhm.
If all you want is to eliminate every morning, um, magnesium citrate is great, and Calm is so great for an emergency and to get started right now.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
and
yeah.
when we think about what our bodies need magnesium for, it's not just Calm, it's for supporting our bones, it's for all of these different things. I think it's like past 800 different enzymatic pathways in our body that need magnesium.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank
So
you.
many things. Now,
Yeah.
I also want to mention, because you mentioned the stool, not that we're not promoting brand names or anything, but I just got to say it because this is the one that I have. It's called a squatty potty.
Oh yeah.
And so that's really easy to find if someone's looking for, like, what are you talking about, a stool? I mean, it could be
Mhm.
any stool, but the squatty potty is really designed well to fit around the toilet, places for the feet.
Yeah.
So that's a good brand, and it's readily available as well.
Super easy. Yeah.
Interesting. When
Squatty pot.
I was on a trip to Costa Rica a few years ago, and I was in a public washroom there, and they had stools like chained on in the public bathrooms and little signs showing people how to use them. which
I love that.
I know, isn't that great? So,
Oh, that is brilliant.
having something like that, like it's just so important. If we can't even open up those muscles that are going to allow elimination, then it's going to be a lot tougher to have elimination. So,
Absolutely.
okay, so you've got some really great starting strategies there, and they can take people a long way. What about food, like the types of food? Do you get into that at all with your clients?
I do. And that is the next step. Once a person is kind of like stabilized and they have the routine and they know how much magnesium works for them and they know how to move it up and down if if they like go out of town and have more constipation or something happens, um then we take a look, and once they're like they've really stocked up inside their body on calming magnesium, then we're in a place where we can start talking about food, because food is really emotional and we really depend on it, all of us, for more than just sustenance.
Yeah.
So then we start talking about, okay, what are some of the foods that slow down intestinal motility and really contribute to constipation in so many people? And if you think about opiate drugs, when someone's going in for surgery and they get the pain meds for afterward, they always get the directions. These are constipating and you should take this medicine, and that'll help. And usually even that medicine doesn't help because it's like opiates really stop your motility. So it turns out that two of our most like commonly eaten foods have opiates in them: dairy
What?
and gluten.
Which one? What was the first one?
Dairy has opioid peptides and gluten has opioid peptides. So these are those opiate like molecules that our body can't really disassemble, and that trigger this brain response that's like, that's why macaroni and cheese is like the number one comfort food. Macaroni and cheese and pizza and all those things. Noodles and butter. There's actually a children's song by a really amazing children's musician, like all about noodles and butter, about the kids who are like, I don't want desserts, no cakes, no pies, just noodles and butter, right?
But they're constipating.
And they're extremely constipating. Not for everybody. Some people do have a different kind of reaction to dairy, and we can really talk about, like, with dairy is interesting, like there is no other species that consumes another mammal's milk other than people, like human beings are like really an interesting species. We are natural, but we do a lot of things really differently than other creatures. And fermenting dairy can change some things, but really it's super important for people, I think, to experience firsthand, really clearly, what a food does to their body, what it
Mm.
does to their moods, their energy, how they feel. And the way to do this is with ideally a 4-week elimination of that food, and then reintroducing it so you can just experiencing it. So you can
Yeah.
experience it. Like,
Ah,
I never tell anybody you have to do this.
yeah.
When they're working with me, I'm just like showing them, here are the options and here's what you're going to learn. Here's what's happened in the past. Are you interested? And there's nothing like knowing where the problem is coming from. If you don't know where the roots are, how can you dig them up?
Right.
So I just love giving people the power and the recognition, like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize, like, my 10-year-old, not mine, but like you can imagine like a kid, oh my gosh, when they eat bread, that's when all of this behavior stuff happens. This isn't my kid's personality. And
Right.
oh my gosh, what if it's you? Oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
thought like my whole life, my family was like, oh, that's our quiet one. That's our depressed one. Right. But maybe it's not you. Maybe it's just the food. And then you get to decide, like, you don't have to stop eating it forever. But now you
Yeah.
know, and you can be like, oh, that
Then
chocolate cake is worth it. I'm going to eat that chocolate cake with all the gluten and the dairy. And then I'm going to get in the car and leave before I act like a monster. Perfect.
it's so eye-opening, and it puts people in that position of being empowered instead of
Yeah.
like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know why I'm so depressed. My mother was depressed,
Mhm.
whatever, right? They can have come at it a little bit differently. Okay, I know what happens to me. So an experiment of one is just absolutely beautiful. Um,
Mm.
Alyssa, we didn't like kind of say right in the beginning, what is healthy elimination? Because some people think, oh yeah, I poop once a week. That's totally, that's normal for me.
I shouldn't laugh.
No, not me. I'm good.
Yeah.
But what would you say? How would people know? I mean, you said some
Yeah.
people, if they're constipated, like they know it, they have pain, but some
Yeah.
people think it's totally normal for them to have one bowel movement a week. What would you say to
Yeah.
that? Or every 5 days or something?
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. And I'm so grateful to you for inviting me on your podcast and having this conversation, because really we all need to be aware of this. It is normal and healthy to be eliminating, to have a nice full bowel movement, which is a long, soft banana every day,
Every
every
day.
day. And it might, and for a lot of people, it is very healthy and normal to have an elimination after every meal. That's the gastrocolic reflux. You bring something in, it's like, oh yeah, let's move this stuff out, make room for the new stuff.
Yeah.
Totally normal.
Yeah.
Like,
That would be
um,
ideal.
but as we've shifted our foods, as we've brought in, as we've gotten more stressed, as we've gotten more busy, and oh, no time to stop and poop. We got to leave. Um, what's common has really, really shifted. And so it is really common. Doctors are saying, oh, yeah, a few times a week is good enough.
Yeah.
That's not good enough. That's constipation. That is not letting the toxins out. So, yeah. So,
I,
I mean, the first thing to do is really take stock. A lot of people don't even really keep track.
right.
But if we're looking at neurocognitive disorders like ADHD and Parkinson's disease and things like that, if constipation is going along with those, I think it's a good idea to eliminate the constipation and
Yeah.
see if we can avoid those.
Yeah. Oh, so good. And I'm so glad that you talked about the common versus normal because, we hear this comes up a lot on the podcast. People saying, oh, well, all these symptoms are considered normal, but it's not normal. It's just common because of the crappy way we're eating and living and stressed and all those things. The other thing
Yeah.
you talked about, Elissa, that I thought was really important too, and well, I was interviewed by you for your upcoming summit. The title of it again, can you share?
The new science of healthy elimination, natural solutions to constipation, belly pain, and bloating. And your interview was a standout, an absolute standout. So I'd love to touch on a couple of the things. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you, but I would love to mention a couple of things that you
Sure.
did some demonstrations, and yeah, it was wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so honored to be part of it and talking about breath work because that stress, right, is part of what can keep us constipated. But the other thing that we talked about, and you mentioned it earlier, was the connection between emotions, and I find it super interesting this idea that a lot of people have problems with digestion. It's sort of like a metaphor for not being able to digest life. So it's interesting. You see that happening a lot in your practice?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because, we have our brain, and then we have our second brain, and they talk back and forth, lots of messages going from down here to up here.
Yep.
But there are messages going from up here to down here. And if in our brain, we're feeling like, tight, holding, racing, for whatever it is that's stressing us out, this is a message that's going to our entire body, including our smooth muscle, the muscle of our gut. And so then we're holding, we're tighting, we're freezing, we're in that fight or flight or freeze. And
Yeah,
then the more we're frozen here, 9 times as many signals from our belly are going up to our brain. And so it just reinforces, which
just keeps on going.
so much about interrupting this process so gracefully, with all of your meditation, your pain relief, your presence.
Aw. Let's hear a little bit more about the summit. What are the dates of it, and what are some of the other topics that kind of stood out for you?
Yeah. So the summit goes live on January 23rd. That's a Monday, runs through the 29th. We have different experts and their featured talks every day, every one of those 7 days. And we cover so much. In your interview, you did several demonstrations of how we can do meditations, how to approach mealtime and rituals around eating that are so beautiful and will actually start helping immediately. And then we have specialists talking about hormones. We have physical therapists talking about how to really utilize our bodies to speak to our brains. We have a whole bunch of gut health specialists touching on everything from how to actually start our digestion up in our stomach properly, to how to change the microbes in our entire system and eliminate things like SIBO. So we're really coming at it from a whole bunch of different directions, and yeah, it's been very fun. And we actually talk a lot about the brain's involvement. We have a couple of neurospecialists as well.
Yeah, that might surprise people. And you mentioned SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth, very common cause of bloating and constipation or diarrhea or both.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really glad I saw that you've got some of the like world experts on
Oh
SIBO
yeah.
on there. So, so important. Elissa, this is such an important topic and so brave, and I appreciate all the work because I know how much work it takes to do a summit. For you to put all this together to help people, they can watch it totally free for that week, or I mean they can buy it if they want to have it for their health library as well, but it's just so important to be sharing this and gathering these people. So thank you so much for that work that you're doing, and we'll share a link so that people can sign up for that summit to watch it for free. This podcast will come out, like, I think by the time people are listening to it, it'll just be like probably starting in the next few days. So I hope people sign up for it and really do something about this problem that people aren't talking about, but it's so important. But even today, you've given people some really great, easy first step solutions. So thank you so much for that, Elissa.
Thank you, Jane. Your appreciation means so much to me because you are doing such good things in the world. Thank you.
Ah, it's a big love fest here. So I always ask my guests one last question, and that is, what's one thing you would tell someone to do today? Because we're talking about baby steps and being intentional. What's something they could do today to begin to initiate healing in their body?
Yeah. Go to the grocery store and get some of that calm that we were talking about earlier. And even just make it a priority to drink a couple of big glasses of water first thing in the morning, and
Yes.
then wait a little while before you eat anything.
Ah,
And,
great.
those are kind of two things, but I'm going to throw in one more thing. If
Yeah.
you don't have a poop stool, get a couple like big cans of coffee or like those tall cans of tomato juice and put one on each side of the front of your toilet. And there, you've got a portable poop stool.
Love it. I remember hearing about someone said when they were traveling, they didn't have their squatty potty with them, so they just put their suitcase in front of the toilet and and use that like a stool. Great,
Perfect.
great suggestions there, Alyssa. Okay, where can people find out more about you?
Yes, you can find me at coachelissa.com. That's CoachElissa.com. And from there, you can find I have a Facebook group and Instagram. And yeah, that's probably the best.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for being a guest today. We'll have those links so people can find you. And I just really appreciate what you're doing and just awesome work, Alyssa, helping
Thank you.
people one stool at a time.
Thank you so much, Jane.
All right, bye. And thank you so much to everyone watching, listening, and please share this with someone you know who needs it. If you've been hearing them talking about having problems with bowel movements, then they need to know about this. So share it with them, leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Take care, everyone.